My name is Kenn Finkelstein. I was asked to do a video which is going to cover a little over 50 years of my life. I'm going to make it as brief as possible. It's not a happy video. There were moments, absolutely, when I was really happy, but let me just explain who I am. I was born in Philadelphia, May 28, 1946. I enlisted in the Air Force under John F. Kennedy, July 9th of 63. Of course, went to Lackland, went to Amarillo Air Force Base, and wound up in December of 63 at George Air Force Base. When I arrived at George, I have a picture. Mine is put away. I'm going to find it. This is what I was issued. It's called a Radiac DT60 personal dosimeter. I had no idea what it was. It was about 1.5 inches in diameter. It fit in the buttonhole of our fatigues. We had to have it exposed at all times. Nobody knew what it was. We found out later what it was. After many years of being discharged from the military. When I arrived at George, I was sent to the barracks at the end of the main road, the runway, World War II barracks. 3 weeks afterwards, I developed 100 or more warts on the bottom of each of my feet. The base hospital injected them, which was not fun. Couldn't do anything with it. They sent me to UCLA, and I was strapped down on a gurney, held by orderlies while they put liquid nitrogen on my heels. I thought I was going to bust out and go through the roof of the hospital building. My feet healed, but the inner scars never went away. My job was to work on jet engines, J-79s. At that time, the F-104s, and then eventually the F-4s, which came a few months later. You would get on the ground underneath of these engines, have my right knee on the concrete. We had no gloves, we had no eye protection, no ear protection, no nothing protection. The jets take off right at the runway. We were right there with the hangars. I would go out to the test cells once a week to take an engine out that was just completed. They always had to be tested before they went into the aircraft. We had little push plugs about 1 inch long, yellow, that we would shove in each ear. That's the only ear protection we had. When you're at a test cell and that jet engine's pushing 100%, and then they put the afterburner on, that ground shaking and rumbling, and you're there with a wrench or whatever tool it was, checking for leaks, that noise was loud. Very loud. The decibels were extremely high on the J-79. When you take apart a jet engine and you're underneath and you take the fuel pump off, you get JP4 running down your arms, because my hands would be up on my body, splashing in my face. You had hydraulic fluid doing the same thing. The parts that we took off had to be cleaned. We took them to a tank, which had some kind of a toxic chemical in there. We have the gloves. They didn't have no thick rubber gloves like they have today. We didn't have any eye protection or any ventilators. We just put our hands in it. What else could you do? And clean these parts. Chemicals. I have a 3-page list which was provided to me of all the chemicals I've been exposed to at George. Now I have a better understanding of why my body failed all these years and is on its last leg of failing. I have stage 5 kidney cancer, kidney disease. I've lost 1 kidney to cancer already. Never smoked a day in my life. I don't smoke anything. I don't really drink. I'll have a glass of wine once every month. But yet, I've suffered a brain tumor. I had to have it surgically removed. That was no fun. They went up through underneath the lip, through past the nose cavity, and into the brain. I've had bones grow on the inside of my gums, top and bottom, where they were at least 3/8 of an inch long, protruding. Bone growth. Why did I get bone growth? I have no idea. Surgically removed. That was an interesting surgical procedure to be done. The warts, thank God, were done, but I ran into another problem. I had a first sergeant who was anti-Semitic, and I was one of two Jewish people that were there. It was tormenting from morning till night. Extra duty, extra KP duty every weekend, no base pass. The things that were said, the constantly coming around the back of my head, slapping me in the back of the head, yanking chest hairs out, just for the heck of it. The physical, the push-ups, the mental, and the emotional, they don't go away. That's something called PTSD. How do I know this? I have a doctorate in clinical psychology and a master's. I know what this is. But I lived with it. See the shirt I'm wearing? Interesting shirt. You know what it is. I have a matching hat. The motto? Did I get that in Vietnam? No. How did I get that? My first sergeant was a great guy. He gave me an assignment one day, strapped on a canister on my back, which had a hose and a spray tube, and it had to be pumped. As you went along, you pumped it. And there was a big container at the end of the barracks. It was tan and it had an orange stripe in it. I didn't question what it was. We know what it is. We know what it was. They used it as a defoliant. I would spray between the barracks, under the barracks. This was the extra details I would get. 2 to 3 times I remember doing this. You would spray it, the wind would blow it back in your face. It got on my hands, of course. Got all over my fatigues. Didn't think nothing of it until recently, when I dug and found out what it was. Shortly thereafter, I got deep depression set in because of not going into town, not having a base pass, all these extra details. I would do my job at the engine shop, at the test cells, and then come back to the barracks and have more details to do. I went to the hospital at the base. They gave me pills. Who knows what they were? They gave me suicidal thoughts, ideation it's called. Never felt that I wanted to take my life at that time, because I enjoyed this service. I enjoyed when I first joined. I went to Lackland. I enjoyed Amarillo Air Force Base. I learned something really interesting. I love jets. I wanted to fly jets. I eventually did, many years later, but it was just an interesting time. In '65, after a good year of this abuse, I asked for a transfer. The Vietnam War just escalated. I cross-trained into munitions. I was sent to Lowry Air Force Base for tech school. There I got more involvement with toxic chemicals. Oh, I forgot to mention, at George, it was a radioactive base. There was wash basins when planes would come back from doing their drops of the atomic and hydrogen bombs. They had wash racks there. We used to take our cars there and wash them, believe it or not. Yeah, that's what we did. Sometimes we even put a little JP4 in our car engines to give us a little extra boost. But the radioactivity at that base, the toxins at that base, the drinking water, brownish, tinge, tasted horrible. Not only did we drink it, brushed our teeth in it, washed our face, washed our bodies, washed our clothes. Don't forget the chow hall. They cooked in it. Our foods were cooked. Soups were cooked. Tea, coffees, everything we consumed that was cooked with water came from the spigots, which came from the toxic water that base pumped from. As far as illnesses, when I returned home, I started to have problems with irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. I still have it today. Behavioral problems, nasty, rude, arrogant. I went to the Philadelphia VA 2 different times in the late 60s. I was turned away. Vietnam War was at its height. They didn't have time for anybody like me. I was literally turned away. In 71, I had gotten married in 67. Big mistake. My fault. Good woman. I was a mental case. The yelling and the screaming, the physical, mental, and emotional abuse I gave her. And I had 2 sons. It wound up in a horrible divorce. I lost my 2 kids. It's the first time in my life I ever tried to take my life. I took some pills. I drank. Next thing I knew, I'm waking up on a hospital emergency room table with, I guess, a doctor on top of me pounding on my chest. He said I died. He said I died. Scared the hell out of me. Later in years, 30-some years later, the ex-wife got in touch with me and told me a story that she had gotten in the car that I had bought her, took it out on the highway. She didn't like to drive, faced it into oncoming traffic on the side of the road, and wanted to kill herself. That was the hardest thing to listen to because I was such a horrible person. Not all the time, but enough times to push her away. Lost 2 sons. Got remarried. Been married to my same wife now, going on over 45 years. She deserves the Medal of Honor for putting up with me. I wish I could get it for her. I've almost lost her twice. She's lost love for me because of my behaviors. Why she's sticking with me, I don't know. Maybe she feels sorry. Maybe she knows that death is coming soon to me. As I said, I'm stage 5 renal failure. I've been through dialysis classes. They want to do dialysis on me. I've refused it. I'm not a candidate for a kidney. I'm too old. I'm 72. So I've decided that when the time comes, I will have some pills with me. If the pain gets that bad, just take some pills and go to sleep. What else can one do today? I've applied to the VA so many times for compensation. I deserve at least 40% for all the crap I put up with. I don't want 100. We have guys that lost a lot over there. They deserve it. 40% for what was done to me and what is done to my body. I have severe arthritis that I take a 4% vial of, I should get it for you, but I don't need to. It's a vial of lidocaine. There's 2%, 4%. I used to use the 2% until yesterday. Now it's 4% for the pain. I was taken off of the pain pills. I took a half a Norco in the morning and a half a Norco, which is hydrocodone, in the afternoons, nighttime, before bed. The VA says they can't give it anymore, and they stopped it cold turkey. So I use a lot of this liquid lidocaine on my joints. That's elbows, feet, fingers, knuckles, knees, shoulders. I'm riddled with arthritis. It's the chemicals that I was exposed to. 3 pages of chemicals. 3. Not 1, not 2. 3 pages. This side. This side. Actually, it's more. I keep going on. I got pages and pages of chemicals that were at George. Not making it up. It was at George. We didn't know it. I feel betrayed. I went in as a naive, young 17-year-old that put his faith and trust in the United States Air Force to train me, take care of me, protect me. How? By exposing me to a base they knew was toxic? Is that the way they protected me? I did my job. I love doing my job. It was great. I served in Japan. I went on a hop to Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base. I don't know how it's affected my life. I had to leave my job that I worked hard for, spent 8 years in college to get a degree in psychology. I have a degree, not 1, 4. I have a associate's, which is minimal, but it's something. I have a bachelor's in criminal justice. I have a master's in psychology, and I possess a doctorate in clinical psychology. I had a nice practice in Vista, California. That's a little above San Diego. I work with veterans. I work with veterans' families, individuals, but I mostly work with children. And I love the work I do with children. But my body was shutting down so fast that in June of 2016, right after I had turned 70, my wife asked me to retire. I wasn't ready, but I retired. She wanted to go to Belize. Hey, she followed me for 40 years. Okay. So we went to Belize. A year and a half after I got to Belize, my body shut down. I was life-flighted to the mainland. They couldn't do nothing. It's a third world country. They took me to Tampa. My wife had to pay a lot of money for a flight to Tampa. I went to Bay Pines Hospital. 2 days later there, they brought in the rabbi to read me my last rites, and my wife was told hospice was on its way. My kidney function was 10%. My gallbladder was inflamed. Pancreatitis. Kidney working at 10%, as I said. And I was failing. It caught up with me. But for some reason I pulled through, and I'm here now. Yeah, I'm angry. I'm very angry about what happened. I'm very angry how my life took a total turn. Every day was hell sitting in my chair at work. I did help those who came to me, especially the children. Fine times with the Air Force? Sure, I got some fine times. There you go. Let's see. I'm not good with cameras, but Bob Little, I met him. He signed that picture of me. First person to fly the F-4 Phantom. And who's that guy in 1978? That's me, with the Air Force, after I did a video on the Air National Guard. I got 2 backseat rides. That's me with Colonel Ockerhausen. He was a colonel. He took me up in the F-4. Pre-flighting. Just messing around as usual. You know, you always have to mess around a little bit. And my ship was the closest one. I was a back seat. That's my story. You all know this picture. I see it every day in my office. 58,000 brothers and sisters sacrificed their lives. I'm here. Not for too much longer, but I'm here. Something has to be done. Now. Thank you.